Motorola is back with the Moto E15, the successor to last year's Moto E14. This time around, we're getting some welcome upgrades to this budget-friendly smartphone, priced at just £70 with 2GB of RAM and 64GB storage. So let's jump in and see what the Moto E15 brings to the table in this in-depth review. The box itself now seems to be made of plastic-free materials, which we also saw with the Lenovo Yoga Tab Plus. And around the back, we've got some specs regarding the camera and RAM boost features. Flipping open the lid, we have the Moto E15 first thing, and there's a sticker on the front, again with some specs of the phone regarding the camera and RAM boost. We get the usual paperwork, including a quick start guide and safety and regulatory information. We have a SIM/SD card tray ejecting pin and a USB-A to USB-C charging cable, and it looks like Motorola has fallen into the no charging brick included club, which is a shame as last year's E14 did come with a charger. We do, however, get a soft TPU case this time though, so does that make up for it? Nah, I don't think so, but let's not cry over spilt milk and jump into the design and build. Up front, we have the 6.6-inch LCD display, up a tiny bit from the Moto E14 6.56-inch display. Bezels wise, it's all pretty much the same here, nice and thick all around, especially with the chin. The frame here is plastic, and on the right we have the volume buttons and power button, which has a built-in fingerprint reader, so a welcome addition. Moto E14 was lacking this. Around the bottom we have a microphone, the USB 2.0 USB-C port, and a speaker grill. To the left is the SIM/SD card tray slot, which can take 2 nano SIMs and an SD card tray up to 1TB. No eSIM support, and the highest network supported is 4G. I'll put my SIM in there for my testing. Up top we have the headphone jack, good to see that's still included, and we have some Dolby Atmos branding. We have the 5-megapixel front-facing hole punch camera and the earpiece, which also doubles up as a second speaker. And then around the back we now have this vegan leather finish in various colors, so it definitely makes the phone look and feel a lot better now, along with the 32-megapixel rear camera. And now we have an ambient light sensor and we have a LED flashlight to the right. The phone seems solid enough for a plastic build, with some flexing with pressure applied but no damage done. And then quickly comparing it side by side with the Moto E14, which is on the left, we can see the ever so slightly larger display, and then pretty much everything else here aesthetics wise is near enough the same, apart from the finish on the back and the camera layout. So for display, there are some slight upgrades from last year. We have a larger 6.57-inch LCD panel, refresh rate is still at 90Hz, and the resolution is still at 720p. Brightness wise, however, we have bump up to 800 nits typical and 1000 nits high brightness mode, all welcome additions over the E14's typical 564 nits display, and is covered in Corning Gorilla Glass 3. You can toggle extra brightness in the settings. We have dark theme, and for colors we have natural and saturated, along with a color wheel for color temperature. You can pick from various colors for theme elements. You can adjust the display size and text, and also toggle bold text and high contrast text. Refresh rate options include auto, 60Hz and 90Hz. And then we have other options like various icon shapes, night light, which can change the display to a warmer tone, and also ambient display, which can be triggered by tapping the display or moving the phone. When it comes to streaming videos on the E15, YouTube playback tops out at 1080p 60fps, but of course the display can only output at 720p. So video content on here, although decent enough with the colors and it's bright enough, it won't be, the sharpest, and you will notice content can be a little washed out and fuzzy at times. Netflix playback is only level 3 wide 1 with SD resolution, so pretty much the lowest configuration there. And again, you won't be getting the absolute best picture quality, but if you're not into the whole pixel peeping too much and you're okay with standard definition content, and you'll be okay with the display capabilities on it. Viewing angles are typical of an LCD panel, with a slight shift to a warmer temperature, and there's a dip in brightness at more extreme angles. And although it may be hard to see on camera here, the higher brightness of the E15 does help with content viewing, as I compare it here with the Moto E15, which is the bottom phone, and I feel like the color reproduction is slightly better on the E15. When it comes to speakers, this time around we're getting stereo speakers with a bottom firing speaker and the earpiece doubling up as the second. For reference, the E14 only had one bottom firing speaker, and again the speakers here are Dolby Atmos supported. In the Dolby Atmos settings themselves, we have different options to pick from, such as spatial, audio, smart audio, music, film and game. with each option having further settings such as equalizer adjustments along with presets and surround virtualizer and also volume leveler. We'll have a listen to the speakers and bear in mind the upcoming volume may be quite loud. USB-C charging cable, no charging brick with this one, folks. That is a separate purchase. And then we'll check out the keyboard pack. First thing we have is the back kickstand attachment that has almost like kind of a leather finish to it. And then we have the keyboard with trackpad, and that's everything we get in. So in summary, the speakers are quite the step up from the Moto E14. I mean, you're not getting premium audio as you would have on more expensive devices, but honestly, the speakers on here offer a decent listening experience. They get quite loud and offer a reasonable amount of depth. Overall, I am impressed, especially for the price that this phone is. For performance, the Moto E15 is powered by the MediaTek Helio G81 Extreme CPU and has the Mali G52 GPU. As expected, it's a low-end setup. We have only 2GB of LPDDR4X RAM, which some would say is quite low even for a budget phone. We do get the option to add up to 6GB RAM via RAM Boost, also known as virtual RAM, and 64GB onboard storage here. The E15 is running on Android 14 Go edition, so that's a stripped-down version of the main Android framework, and Motorola has its own OS running on top, which is quite stock Android-like. But keep in mind, you won't be getting any OS upgrades with this device, but you do get 2-year security patches up until December 2026, according to Motorola. And comparing to the E14, which came equipped with the Unisoc T606 chipset, we can see here on nanoreview.net that there are marginal differences between the two chipsets, but nonetheless, the Helio G81 Extreme scores higher in all departments, so we are in a way getting a better performing chipset overall. Quick look in the settings, and for network, we have the basics such as hotspot and tethering, VPN and private DNS, but keep in mind this device does not have NFC. You can adjust your wallpaper and style with different stock options. Sound and vibration has many different options such as D&D, various volume controls, ringtone options, dial pad tones, screen lock sounds and more. And vibration and haptics has many options too, from ring vibration to touch feedback. And then we get many different options in gestures, from navigation mode, sidebar which allows a pop-up bar for quick app switching. We have one-handed mode, 3-finger screenshot, and then physical key options for the power button to map it to do certain things, or connect gestures such as turning on the torch with 2 karate chop motions. Handy little features there built in. For accessibility, we have various things like select to speak, switch access, talkback via downloadable apps, and then display settings and further options like audio description and hearing device settings. For security and privacy, you can check up on security patches here, and for device unlocking, we have screen lock, fingerprint and face unlock. The fingerprint reader is straightforward, and the reader itself is okay. I would say 8 times out of 10. When it comes to using the phone, we can see that the app load times are, basic. At times things can run smooth. Even then, you're kind of waiting around a second or so for the app to load. And other times there might be quite a delay in, when you click on something or even loading an app or coming out of an app. So just be prepared to have choke ups here and there, jitters sometimes. And at times it can get frustrating, but it's expected from such a low-end chipset and cheap smartphone. For RAM management, I'm sure you know how that will turn out considering we have only 2GB of actual RAM. So I'll open up COD Mobile here. When I switch back to previously opened apps, we can see they have to restart. So they would have obviously closed in the background. So using virtual RAM may help in this regard, but don't really expect much in the way of multitasking on this device. And then the control panel is nice and clear with clear buttons and options, and has a unified layout with notifications on the lower half. When it comes to benchmarks, there are only a few apps I can run benchmarks on. I can't download Geekbench 6, but for Antutu we get a 236,000 score. So quite low there, but again that's expected on an entry-level chipset. On 3D Mark we can only run the Slingshot Extreme test, unable to run wildlife on here. And with this test we can see again low scores. And in performance monitoring, it lost 1% battery life, temperature rose by 2 degrees, and a frame rate between 2 to 61 FPS. But again, this is a low-end benchmark. For read and write speeds, these are again quite low with 299 megabytes on read and 256 megabytes on write. You can connect external drive to the phone, and in my case the phone wasn't showing the videos for my stored 4K footage, but I was only playing back the audio. And when I tried copying a file over onto the device, which was 6 gigabytes, it ended up taking a very, very long time. So just be aware of those kind of speeds. We'll check out some gaming on the phone, and first thing to know is that not all games will be available on the Moto E15. More graphically intense games are not compatible, most likely due to not meeting the minimum RAM requirement. So examples would be Call of Duty Warzone, Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, which are the normal games I play to test a device. So we're going to start off with 99% battery, and brightness is set to 75% with the volume at 25%. And we can download Call of Duty Mobile, so we'll check that out. And in the graphics settings, low is the only option for visual quality and medium for frame rate, and all the other options here are grayed out, so very limited there. And playing on those settings, the visual quality is obviously not going to be the best, and the gameplay itself is reasonable. I mean, you can see right off the bat here we get some massive lag, and resulting in me getting unalive. So you can expect some jitters and lags, but when it's running fine, it's okay enough, I guess, for basic gaming. And after a few games, and I would say roughly 20 minutes of playing, we're down to now 96% battery, and battery temperature is reading 24 degrees and the CPU at 52 degrees, so nothing alarming there. For PUBG, the highest for graphic quality is HD, and for frame rate, Ultra is the highest option available. And on here, the game was running, I would say, a bit smoother than Call of Duty maybe. Graphic quality is decent and frame rate was reasonable, but of course quite limited relative to what is available on higher spec phones. And if you're okay with limited heavy games and limited graphic settings, then I guess you'll be fine. And after roughly 25 minutes of gaming, we're down to about 93% battery, so not too bad there, but of course there's nothing crazy going on with the graphics as they were on low, and the CPU temperature is at 51 degrees, battery at 28 degrees. So the Moto E15 comes equipped with a 5200 mAh batteries, and that's up from 5000 milliamps on the E14. So quite a large battery packed in here. It supports 18 watt, what Motorola calls turbocharge, and on my testing, a 0 to 100% charge took 1 hour and 40 minutes roughly, and that was using an 18 watt charger. In battery usage, we can see our screen time and battery usage with listed apps, and we can see in my use, I managed 7 hours 24 minutes screen time and still had 21% battery life. And this was me using the phone with lots of different things like taking calls, messaging, streaming content, using the cameras, playing games. So I have to say the battery life on here is really good. And then you have other things like battery saver with different options such as setting a schedule or limiting background activity. Battery manage limits your battery on apps that you don't use often, and overcharge protection when enabled will limit the charge to 80%, and once a week it will charge up to 100% to keep the battery calibrated. So nice to see a feature like that on a budget phone. And lastly, you have battery information for number of cycles and health status. So again, good to see this kind of information. But overall, I think battery life on here is definitely a highlight. We'll have a quick listen to how the phone handles calls, starting off with how the earpiece sounds on a call and then switching to what the mic would sound like for someone else. In my experience, call quality was good, not maybe crystal clear as you would expect on higher end phones, but perfectly fine for normal day-to-day use. Mic check, just doing a quality test on the Moto E15, see what the call quality sounds like when it comes through. Checking what the mic quality is like on the phone itself on a receiving end. So currently on my Apple Watch, a little bit of background noise. Mic check 1 2 1 2, see what this sounds like coming through. When it comes to optics, the Moto E15 has a 32 megapixel rear camera with quad pixel technology and an ambient light sensor, and the front facing camera on here comes in at 8 megapixels. In the camera app itself, we have time-lapse, video, photo, portrait, QR code and Pro. And in the settings, things are really simple here with photo options like watermark and auto HDR. For video, we can only toggle from H.264 and H.265, and general settings have things like tapped anywhere to capture, shutter sound, assistive grid, leveler and other things like that. We have 1x and 2x zoom options, and other than that, things are pretty simple. And then for portrait, you can adjust the f-stop. On Pro mode, you can adjust the white balance, ISO, exposure and focus, so you have a bit more flexibility there. And we'll have a quick look at some captures I took with the phone, starting off with video capture, which I'll compare with my iPhone 15 Pro Max, just so you get an idea of the differences in the camera capabilities. But overall, what I would expect on a budget phone, but I think it's quite a bit better than what the Moto E14 was capable of. I'm recording with the Moto E15 and my iPhone 15 Pro Max at the same time. Auto recording 1080p 30 fps. just so we get an idea of the difference between two cameras. Out here in Scotland at the moment. So in conclusion, the Moto E15 offers quite a compelling package for those seeking a really affordable smartphone with, your essential features. The 6.67-inch HD plus display with 90Hz refresh rate provides, decent experience for visuals, while the 32 megapixel rear camera delivers, I would say, respectable photo quality for everyday use from a budget phone. The MediaTek Helio G81 processor handles basic tasks efficiently, though it does face limitations with more, demanding applications and gaming. And like I said, the 5200 mAh battery provides substantial longevity. Obviously, running on Android 14 Go edition, it offers, a stripped down version tailored for its hardware capabilities. So while it might not cater to the power users or intensive multitasking, the Moto E15 stands out as a decent choice in the entry level segment, balancing performance and affordability, I would say, quite effectively. Obviously, there are other options out there from manufacturers such as Xiaomi who offer quite good budget smartphones. Overall, I think using it for basic tasks and basic day-to-day things, this phone will suffice. Obviously, if you're looking for something more demanding and more premium features, you would have to look elsewhere, or you might even just purchase this phone as a second/burner phone, as some people would say. But I think Moto E15 is a worthy upgrade from last year's Moto E14. So if you're looking for something cheap and effective, then I would definitely recommend this phone, as long as you are aware of its limitations. Anyways, that's everything from me today, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.